back and you watch the film and you look at those mistakes, it's always more than one person or one group. Everything ties together. And most people just see the back end mistakes. They don't see, a front end mistake, a pop gap, a missed pass rush. It's a little bit of the business, in that regard. So, the secondary tends to take the brunt of it. But it was a complete team, failure to execute throughout the entire game. We'll put it that way. There was at times, when we executed and everybody did, their job responsibility, we look good and we play good as a defense. But all it takes is one. That's the beauty of this game, is that everybody is relying on the guy next to him to do his job. And, yeah, there are plays that you can get away with. Somebody doesn't do their job, but it just happened to be on the backside of a play, so it didn't hurt you. But in games like that and against good football teams in the SEC, those mistakes tend to get magnified, and it cost us.
Josh Moore.
Hey, Brad, when you look at and try to game plan for Colin this year, assuming he goes for them, how do you look at what he did this year and what he did that first game as a receiver? What can you how do you plan for him, I guess, you kind of as a different threat but the same athlete that's back there?
Say that one more time, the first part.
Colin Hill, just planning for him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Obviously, a tremendous athlete. When the ball's in his hand, he does some really dynamic things. Obviously, he had a good game against us last year as well, so we're obviously very familiar, with how dangerous he can be. And so having him back, gives their offense, again, another dimension. But I think all three of their backs are really talented. And obviously you saw that they're a big part of the offense, not just being handed the ball, but in the passing game. So we're going to have to do a great job of tackling. They don't go down easy. One guy typically doesn't bring him down. And so we're going to have multiple hats to the ball. And that's going to be a big piece and a big key to this game. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Is that when you're planning for him as a receiver? That was kind of the main question is.
Gotcha.
The tackling
when he's a receiver. Well, in interest that when you watch the film, it's not as if he aligns as a receiver. He does most of his work out of the backfield, so that it doesn't change sort of the structure of how we approach it. We just know the danger, that he becomes when he gets out of that position. And, some teams use their backs more than others. Obviously, their backs out of the backfield are a big part of their offense. And they do a great job at, distributing the ball to all the different receivers they have, all the different backs. Everybody gets involved, which is you think from a morale, standpoint, they're able to keep everybody, upbeat and ready, pulling from the same rope because they all know that they've got a chance to make a play.
Okay, John Wong.
Hey, Brad, supposedly there is a blueprint out there for how to defeat a Mike Leach coached offense. And I'm sure you've looked at variations of that, but do you subscribe to a blueprint theory? And what are the one or two major keys to slowing down that offense?
I don't. If there was a blueprint, he wouldn't be one of the most successful offensive minds in this business for the last 20 plus years. He's done it for a long time, and I grew up, watching these offenses put up points. And so, no, I don't think. I think there are certain times when certain teams had success, but that's no different than any other offensive system. I think, you can't be one-dimensional with him, because he's been in this and he knows his system so well that if you get locked into one, he knows the answer. So I think we have to do a good job of being able to play, some different things and provide different looks. But obviously, we try to study a lot of different film to find out, what gives us the best chance to succeed.
Lonnie,
Oh, I think you're muted.
Try this. Brad?
Yes.
Okay. Now, a lot's been said about everybody playing their own responsibilities and not trying to do too much. And do you subscribe? I mean, what do you do to keep players from being too hyped up about games and have them playing, playing hard and playing fast, but playing with keeping their responsibilities in check and playing, not trying to do too much? How do you control that?
No, that's sort of the age-old question in coaching is trying to keep finding the right ways to, push the right buttons and motivate and get, like you said, get them to play to a high level, but understand, that it's really important that they do their job. Now, there's that fine line because you don't want guys to you want them to do their job really, really well is what you want them to do. But there's a piece that you don't want them to be satisfied because we've all seen it. A guy does his job. Maybe he holds his primary gap and then all of a sudden the ball breaks into his secondary gap. He's able to tear off and he saves it from being a big play. We want that. We want guys to be able to win in their primary and then be able to tear off in their secondary. We want them to be able to play with depth in their zone, but QB intentions and ball flight in the air, and they go make a play in the air. So you don't want to take the football player out of guys. So there's always that balance. But we always stress, and Coach Stoops stresses it, we stress it as a coaching staff on both sides of the football, is that you have to do your primary job first before you do your secondary job. And sometimes guys get antsy, if they don't feel like they're making a lot of plays or they don't feel like they're getting involved. And a lot of it's not malicious, and it's not necessarily selfish. It's that they feel like they need to do something to help the team win. And they don't realize they are doing that just by doing their primary job. So it's that constant stressing to them of you are helping the team win, even though it may not show up on a stat sheet. And that's hard. Every player wants to see their name on the stat sheet. Everybody wants to make a tackle or make a sack or make an interception or a fumble or, be able to make a difference. And so it's always that constant balance that you have to wager.
John Clay,
Brad, on that subject, kind of following up on that, I know before the season started during camp, you talked about that you wanted to continue to limit big plays like you did last year, but you also needed to make more plays on your side. Is that one thing that you're still missing? And does making the types of plays, do they come within the structure of the defense, or do they come from guys making the type of plays that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to make more plays. We have gone 2 games. We haven't forced a turnover. That's unacceptable. It's not giving the offense any chances to have those short fields. So no, we need to continue to find ways to make plays. And some of it's, guys have a natural feel, but some of it's structure and some of it is play calling. And I've got to make sure I put them in position to make plays and dial up a call or two that gives them an opportunity, to get a free run on a quarterback or get their hands on a ball. So no, it's on all of us right now, and we're all grinding from top to bottom, from players to coaches, trying to find what our identity is this year. And we talked about that early in preseason. We talked about every team. It doesn't matter what it looks like on paper. Every team has its own identity. Every defense every year has its own identity. And right now we have to find ours. We have to find out who we are. And it's all easy when things are going great. And what we need to do now is like what we did last year. When we hit that skid last year, and the guys said enough is enough, and they galvanized and played really good football down the stretch. But we don't have time to wait till a bye week. We've got to get this thing fixed, and we got to get it fixed in a hurry. So we got a lot of good teams starting this week against Mississippi State coming in.
Nick Roush.
To piggyback off the playmaking, you've gotten some pressures, you've dialed them up, but they haven't gone home. What can you do as a coach to get your players to finish those plays in the backfield?
We some are fundamental issues that we have to continue to stress in practice. Some are, it's funny when you go through and you look at how close we are in a lot of different instances, and people talk about it's a game of inches. A lot of time they just think about it in terms of where the football is on the football field, but it's not. The first pass coming out of the second half, if we're a touch deeper, we get our hand on, it's a tip ball at the linebacker level, and we probably intercept it. Instead, it's 2 inches over his fingertips because he came downhill a step too fast, and all of a sudden it's a big play. In the pocket, we've slid off a couple now in these first 2 games. We've just got to continue to emphasize the little things because they make all the difference.
One quick follow-up. The defensive line this year, you're doing a lot of pre-snap movement kind of right before the ball is snapped. Where did that come from, and what does it kind of do for your defense?
We've sort of always had it in the system. With some veteran guys up there, we can probably do it a little bit more than we have in the past. One thing it does is, it creates a little indecision in the offensive line. We've seen it. It's created a couple of false starts. But what it also does is it allows our guys to get in some leverages and go win, in some gaps on some edges. And again, we're trying to find ways to help our guys be able to go, make, positive plays for us, negative yardage plays, to get us in some, longer down and distances where we can go, and be more aggressive. That's the key, and people talk about the keys. The keys are we have to be able to win early to have some success late. We've done really well on 3rd and long this, I say really well. We've done decent, better than last year on 3rd and long, but we got to get to those down and distances. We did not win P and 10, in the second half, and that's really what hurt us. The 4 P and 10s in the second half all started with big plays, and all of a sudden you're on the positive side of the football field, and they're 1 play into their drive. So, and that's on us. We've got to correct that, both structurally, and technique-wise.
Jeff Drummond.
Hey, Brad, it seemed like there may have been some communication issues Saturday between kind of linebackers and DBs at times, and kind of a tie-in to that. Mark alluded to maybe reassessing some things about how they're lining up schematically, that kind of thing, to deal with tempo. Are those things related if it's happening?
Every once in a while, because of tempo, there might be a failure, from a communication, whether it's from the linebackers or the front, or the linebacker level to the back end, or even from, one side of the field to the other, from a DB standpoint. First 2 weeks, it stresses communication, and we just have to continually harp on it. And you can't, it goes back to, it's as much technique as anything else. Communication is a technique. If you fail to communicate, just like if you fail to take a proper step, you're not going to be successful on that down. Now, there are some times that you can get away with it because it may have been on the backside, but when it's on the play side and things aren't communicated properly, or fully, then that's when you have breakdowns and that's problems. And we got to get those fixed, and we will.
Kent Spencer.
Yeah, Brad, through the first 2 weeks of the season, how do you feel when it comes to the guys on the back end? Are they making enough plays on the ball for your liking back there?
I mean, obviously we would like more ball production. And, again, we need to put ourselves in positions where, we can make certain calls that, if you can put them into some predictable pass situations, that they can play with some more zone eyes. And, it's always funny. Everybody likes man-to-man coverage, and the thought of man-to-man coverage and getting sticky. It's harder to make plays when your eyes are focused on a man specifically. Now you can make PBUs, you can cover up, you can make a QB hold it and get a sack. But you watch the teams that get a lot of their hands on a lot of balls, they tend to be more zone-type, zone-based teams because they have eyes on the football and the quarterback. But I do still think that you've got to play a mix, because if you get predictable in one, coordinators are too good these days. They'll find the weakness. And so we just have to continue to be multiple in that regard. But no, we know we need to make more plays on the back end. We haven't had enough over the last 2 years, really only 3 interceptions over the last 2 years. We had done better last year with forced fumbles, but we haven't had any this year. So we need ball production at every level. And obviously that's an emphasis for us right now.
All right, we got time for one more. John Clay.
Brad, you touched on this earlier, but how important is tackling against this type of offense, not letting those 6 and 7 yard passes turn into 15 and 20 yard passes?
Oh, it's huge. And specifically in this offense, what a lot of people don't realize, it's the hidden yards that add up on you. And those receivers that do a nice job and they catch a ball for 4 and they roll over their shoulder, and all of a sudden it's a 6 yard gain. And instead of 2nd and 6, it's 2nd and 4. Or instead of 3rd and 4, it's 3rd and 1. And they're really well coached. The system's been successful for decades. And so obviously it's going to be a huge challenge for us to be patient too. That's, what you can't be is impatient and feel like, they're going to get yards and they're going to make catches and they're going to make plays. But when they catch it, we have to drive. Tackling is of the utmost importance because we have to pin the ball to the ground and give ourselves a chance, right, to play the next play.
Actually, Dr. Wong has one more. You cool with that?
All right.
Dr. Wong, last one.
Hey, Brad, your team came in this year with such high expectations. I'm sure everybody is disappointed, but what's the mood in the locker room right now? Are they embarrassed? Are they mad? Are they confused?
No, I'd tell you what, I thought Monday was arguably our sort of best Monday practice this year. I think they're a prideful team. And I mean, I'm sure within that pride, there's a little sense of embarrassment. We're all embarrassed. But they understand that we've got a chance to right this ship, and there's a lot of time left, and we've got 8 games guaranteed to us, and we're close from a standpoint of they see on film, they see it's one guy here, it's one guy there. Maybe it's a bad call on my part here, a miscommunication. there are things that we can control. It's not a talent issue. It's not a we're overmatched issue. It's if we can dial in more, give more time in the film room, a better effort on the practice field, just that much more, we got a chance to be a really good football team. And so they came out with a lot of energy, and they've practiced hard thus far this week. And, we need to carry that on. It can't just be a 1 day or a 2 day thing. And then the emotion of, all right, let's turn this thing around falls away. It has to be a daily grind. And, so far so good in that regard, but nobody's daubers down, nobody's heads down, nobody's throwing in the towel. That's what you like about this group. They're resilient. And since I've been here, the teams I've been around, and it starts the culture that coach has set. Nobody's backing down from anything. We're going to accept our mistakes and our shortcomings. We're going to go fix them.
Thank you. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. 1 second for players.